for November 4th, 2015. I'm your host, Steve Chin, and this is a show, Jersey Hobby Hour, where me and my friends talk about weird stuff that we really like. Everything that covers entertainment, gaming, tech, anything that really catches our fancy. And joining me today is Alan Wan. Alan, how you doing?
Hey, nothing really important happened this week. Just a normal week.
And a special guest tonight, for the first time on our show, we have Matt Armenti. How you doing, Matt?
Well, I'm not too bad, guys. Hope all is well.
So basically, we're just going to run down a few topics, which I have posted in the show notes down below in the video description. And you could follow along with us just by clicking some of those links there. And we're just going to go run right through them and talk about them. And this show will probably take a little less than an hour today. But, of course, we'll probably run over time because that's the thing that we normally do. And you can check us out live, of course, but this video will post to YouTube in about 10 to 15 minutes after this live broadcast is done. And you can leave comments and actually talk to us live if you are watching the live stream. Just punch something up and maybe you can yell at us, and we'll try and answer your questions or yell back at you for complaining about Alan, probably. All right, let's jump right into it. First topic that I kind of threw up there, this is mainly topics that I came up with this week just because we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. Basically, Star Trek is going to have a new series come out. And me being a Trekkie, that's huge news. And there's a ton of Trek nerds throughout there. I think this is great just because, hey, we're getting a new series. The problem here is that CBS wants to air it only for the first 2 episodes or so on TV, and the remaining episodes they want to broadcast over the internet using their pay-for service called All Access, which I think is like $6 a month. What do you guys feel about like web services like this where you pay for new television series that are only available there?
In a sense, it's sort of the way the world is going to. With my knowledge of video on demands and backgrounds and everything along those lines, and I believe we might touch upon this in a bit. The cable network, our generation are known as the cable cutters. I mean, there's no such thing as cable anymore. It's all on demand when we need it now. And that's sort of what they're going to. They're going to the new population, which is this, hey, let's charge them a little extra for something that they could get on the computer on their phones rather than having them sit on the couch and be couch potatoes. Seems like it is part of the future. Do I agree with it? Not at all. It's just an extra value to everything else that we're already paying for.
I mean, I know not necessarily Star Trek is something that you would go and watch on their network for, but let's say one of your favorite television series is coming back for a new season. Would you end up paying for something like that just to watch the new season of it?
To be honest, no. If I like something that much, I think I want that home environment. I mean, this is going back in the day. Lost. Lost is one of my favorite shows, and I looked forward to every week sitting down with my high school buddies and college buddies and watching Lost weekly on the TV, on the couch. Not when I'm on the train, not when I'm by myself, not doing anything along those lines. But that's just my personal opinion.
Well, what's interesting about this, too, is that they actually are going to have commercials for this pay-for service that's available over the internet. So, like, in terms of, like, part of the experience, you're still going to get the commercials experience that you would when you watch television.
Okay, well,
what are your thoughts?
Real quick, Alan, going with my background, I work in the media industry, that's what we do. I mean, we're looking towards that because that's the only way we're going to get things across to people nowadays. Between on-demand, between these quick little websites, even on YouTube, as you see nowadays, in most of the commercials you can't even skip. That is where we're moving forward in the world.
Yeah, I completely agree. This is the model that everyone's going to follow. Like you said, like it's going to be everyone's basically cutting their cable kind of thing, where they're going to. I mean, CBS creates their own content, so like it makes no sense for them to use services such as Hulu, where they have all these like where they get a bunch of their shows on NBC, like NBC. All of them are on there, so they're losing out on revenues for themselves because they're making the content, and they're helping places like Netflix or Hulu make money more. Unlike, in terms of the show, Star Trek, obviously, I'm not a huge fan of Star Trek, but obviously it, like everything else, I mean, this huge nostalgia factor that's playing up right now. Like everything's a huge nostalgia thing. Like, they had like what you call it, the cast of all that got reunited. So like they're playing up to like all this nostalgia factor. Like people are willing to watch these older shows. I mean, I was never a Star Trek fan. I know there's a huge following. I mean, Star Wars is better, but that's besides the point. Yeah.
I mean, again, same question I'm going to throw at you. Well, let's say Star Wars, because I know you're a huge Star Wars fan. Let's say there was a new series that was coming out, and it was only going to be available through a web service like this that you have to pay for on top of your normal cable service. Is that something that you would pay for?
Depends on the show. Really depends on the show.
Going into it blind, without knowing how good the show is or not.
No, why would I? I mean, I would just, like most people on the internet, I would just torrent it or stream it. To be honest with you, right? I mean, that's just the reality. Like people will always find a way to go past this stuff. I mean, it might, like one might argue that this might hurt CBS a little bit because because then they don't, like if they ultimately stop putting content on television, they're gonna lose revenues there. Where like people that's the reason why people watch it on TV because they don't have to watch it on the computers, right? So I mean they might hurt themselves there because people ultimately everyone's gonna find a way to watch an episode whether CBS or like it or any other company like it or not. We're gonna find a way to watch it if we really want to see it.
Well, what's interesting to me is that you actually have other services that have already existed in a similar fashion that you have to pay extra money on top of your normal cable service for. Look at HBO, Starz, Cinemax. Those are all production companies, production houses, which require an extra fee. I mean, you would normally go through your cable company in order to pay it, in order to actually watch their series. I mean, I'm sure plenty of people were actually HBO subscribers prior to even Game of Thrones coming out. And like, hey, Game of Thrones is there. Like, oh, well, you got something good out of it, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's kind of interesting to me because this is a web content provider that is the cable provider or like production house. I don't know. It's really weird to me. And I know, Alan, you don't watch Game of Thrones and don't have HBO. Well, actually, you might.
I do have HBO Go.
You just don't watch it. Okay.
Oh no, I offered to give you my HBO Go so you can watch Game of Thrones.
Matt, do you have HBO and watch Game of Thrones?
I do have HBO. I do not watch Game of Thrones on a regular basis. Due to the reason of I'm a bookie, so I got upset with the two alternate universes that sort of went along. But in that sense, I had HBO, I had Starz, and if something does come on, there's Da Vinci's Demons, there is Game of Thrones. That is stuff that, in my mind, you're not paying extra for. You're paying for the movies, you're paying for anything else that comes along with it, the documentaries. This, right now, at this point in time, just seems like it's going to be, okay, this is going to be a web-specific series. What else am I getting with it? If I'm paying $15, $20 just for one show, that's not worth it to me. In the long run, maybe.
I mean, that's how much you pay for like an HBO subscription, but like the CBS All Access Pass or whatever it's called is like $6 a month, and it's going to include a bunch of stuff, kind of like Netflix does, of like old content, like including MacGyver and stuff like that. And it's going to have commercials. So I guess that's where like the lower cost comes into play, but. And this rolls right into the next topic. I still think you being charged for that extra service on top of your already expensive cable TV service or cable internet service is kind of absurd. So the next topic that we have in line, and this follows closely with what we're talking about now, is in certain areas in the country, Comcast actually has limits on how much data you can use on your home landline service. So much like on your cell phone, you have a 2 gigabytes data limit or something like that. They instill a similar requirement or a similar restriction on your landline at-home internet usage. So, which means when you're watching a YouTube video on YouTube and you actually catch a 15-minute or rather a 15-second or a 2-minute advertisement during the YouTube video, you're actually paying for watching that advertisement. So it seems odd to me, especially with a service like CBS All Access that you'll pay $6 for, that I'm paying for the internet service in order to get connected to the CBS All Access, which I then also pay for so I could watch an advertisement. So in order to watch the advertisement, I actually paid for it twice. I actually paid to watch an advertisement twice. That seems kind of weird to me. But in relationship to the article, though, Comcast is actually allowing customers to pay an additional fee of $35 just to take them to unlimited, rather than have a 300 gigabyte limit. So in the New York metro area, for the three of us, if you guys have Comcast, I'm not sure what you guys have. I do. We don't have a limit right now because they're exploring options on how to charge us. They're basically trying to figure out how much internet we're using and then decide what the cap will be for the New York area. But doesn't it seem weird to you guys that, like, hey, I have to pay for internet, and then when I watch something, I have to pay for it, and then I'm really just watching an advertisement that I just paid for in some amount. And Matt, how do you feel about this?
I mean, I do agree with that. It is odd that we're, in a sense, double, maybe even triple paying at some points of what we're actually watching. And it's sort of going along the lines with what I believe was discussed a couple episodes ago with data on telephones or lack of data on telephones. Everything's changing. Back when we first used cell phones, it was sort of unlimited no matter what. And as of late, you have to set up these certain packages. And that's what it seems like television and internet are going to now. And does that mean that we're going to come to a world where every little thing is going to be charged? I mean, we see that everywhere. You go get a Big Mac and you want extra pickles, you're going to get it charged an extra 25 cents. Is it a lot? No. But when it all adds up, we're going to be in a little bit of a pickle. No pun intended on that one. But it's just interesting that we are going to be paying. We're going to be paying for the commercial that we are then going to be paying for the actual product that we saw in the commercial. So from the standpoint of however that's going into effect, you have the actual service being paid double, one from a client to post the actual commercial, two from us from two different ways, and then the clients actually probably make an extra bit of money because of how they're actually being promoted through that.
Well, I think this is like part of like you said, it's the change in how consumers view their content. I mean, in the past on TV, you had network television, and in order to watch Wheel of Fortune, you had to sit through commercials that happened, and it was because it was regular. Everyone would always go and watch it there, right? So now with the internet, everyone has access to exactly what they want, like the one video that they want. So they don't have to sit through other shows or other advertisements that are aimed at other people, where in this day and age, you go to watch one video on YouTube and you have to sit through that one video that's designed for the type of person that watches that. I mean, I totally get it. I totally get why ultimately you need to have advertisements, because someone's got to help pay for the production of the show, right? Because you don't necessarily directly contribute to the production of whatever you're watching. But at the same time, it used to be enough that advertisers would pay these companies to produce, whatever show or whatnot, and then the cable company would gladly deliver that to you because they would all, collect money from both the advertisers and from the content producers. It's really, the dynamic is changing, but it's like, seems like it's getting a little bit out of hand because it's getting layered against the consumer, against us, from watching what we want and not having to pay for every little thing, including the advertisements, because it seems like I'm paying for advertisements.
I mean, I think.
Matt, go.
Real quick. So I'm actually pro advertisements. I'm pro commercials, and just because they're fun. I mean, to be honest with you, sometimes they are a pain in the neck, and you do watch a YouTube video, you click through after 15 seconds. But there have been times that actually the advertisement on the actual video is something that I never really thought of, and I'm like, hey, and it actually did work, and I looked into something. So that's where I do see the pro on this whole area. So
yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not like completely anti-advertisements. Like when I see an advertisement and stuff, I mean I do watch it, and I mean some of it is useful, but I mean most of it is just kind of like it's there. and I kind of have to watch it. But yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from. Alan, what's your take on all this?
First of all, Matt, if you want pickles, I can give you my pickles. I hate pickles in my Big Mac.
I thought that was going somewhere else.
That's first of all.
Knowing
Put it out there. You can have all the pickles you want from me. Second of all, yeah, I mean, Comcast has to pay for the bills, right? I mean, like, I agree, Steve. There has to be some form of check and balance to kind of keep them in line where they're not overcharging. But what is considered overcharging? I mean, they're gonna try to do a price point where it's like, oh, if you pay an extra $35, you get unlimited internet. But do we know that unlimited internet's gonna be capped in terms of the speed? Because that could be one of their ways to recoup their costs. Because, like you said, like a lot of like unlimited internet, like after a certain point, they cap your speed and they reduce your speed, and they purposely do that, and and they don't tell you, obviously, right? So that's one of the things we can ask about that. But yeah, this is kind of how data is precious now. Everything we do is based on on data, right? We check YouTube, we check our Facebook. Of course these companies they have to pay their bills, and they're gonna exploit that as much as they can to do that until they find the next thing to exploit us on.
Yeah, it just seemed weird to me that there is the possibility or the potential that, let's say you have a 3 gigabyte or a 300 gigabyte. I mean, it doesn't really matter how much.
300 isn't enough, by the way.
Let's say you have some sort of limit, right? And there is the entire possibility that you watch nothing but advertisements, and that entire cap gets filled up just because of advertisements. I have this situation. I was watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. last night on ABC's website from last week. I wasn't actually watching the one from yesterday. And
which was good.
For some reason, my internet decided to sputter out, and I had to reload the webpage in order to watch it again. And I had literally just watched 6 advertisements in a row, so I could continue watching the show. And I was like, okay, that's fine. That's okay. But then my internet sputtered out, and I had to reload the page. And in order to put me back in the same spot, I had to rewatch the same advertisements over again. And the thing, it kind of bothers me that I had to watch them again in terms of a time thing, but it bothers me because I was thinking about, like, hey, well, this is like using up data, right? I mean, this is using up bandwidth. So actually, like, I just got double charged for watching the advertisement, and there's really nothing you could do about it, right? Like, Comcast isn't going to give you a refund for 100 megabytes for advertisements that you just watched. It doesn't seem to work like that. But the fact remains is that can happen. It could entirely happen, especially with websites like CNN or something. You know how the videos automatically play, and the first thing that plays is an advertisement, and then you go to switch to another page, and another advertisement starts playing. You're actually using up a lot of your data limit on just the advertisements, and you're not even getting the content that you really want.
Yeah, actually, ESPN or WWE, if you guys watch wrestling, they actually part of the video is actually the first half is actually the ad, and then it goes to whatever you're supposed to watch. So they actually, they actually implement the ad into the actual video.
Right. Yeah, yeah, you see it all the time when you watch live sports, right? Mm-hmm. They advertise something directly around the round table when they're talking about it. It's like, I have this Dr. Pepper right here. Product placement. Yeah.
Star Wars, no big.
Yeah, it's just something that bothered me that I wanted to bring up. That just, it's kind of weird that, you pay for the service and then advertisements.
Make more money and deal with it. Make more money.
Well, somebody's making money, and I'm spending money in order to make sure that someone else makes money.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next topic that we're going to want to roll right into.
Why Matt's here for real.
Yeah, the real reason why Matt's here for this evening is the Warcraft movie teaser actually came out today. Might have actually been last night. And this is in anticipation of BlizzCon, which is happening this weekend, Friday and Saturday. BlizzCon being Blizzard Entertainment or Blizzard Activision Blizzard, they throw a convention basically just surrounding all of the Blizzard properties, which include Warcraft, StarCraft, the new Overwatch game,
Candy Crush too now.
and apparently Candy Crush, because Activision Blizzard just bought them, or the development company that made them, for $6 billion, which is a ton of money.
$6 billion. So...
But the Warcraft teaser is really big, and it hits home for all three of us because we all played World of Warcraft, we all played Warcraft 3, and some of the older Warcraft games. So we're really invested in the lore, and we have this movie teaser that's 15 seconds long, and it looks phenomenal. Matt, what's your take on this, man? On this
All right.
funny little picture here. What do you think about this that I'm showing everyone?
So I have been waiting for 10 years for this, if not longer. Ever since the original Warcraft came out, I was always hoping for something along these lines. I mean, the graphics that Blizzard always had within their mini cinematics was always amazing. And with what we have here, we have some of the biggest characters through the history or the lore that does come with Warcraft. And to see that it's going to be coming to life, I mean, we've seen it in the video games, we've seen it in the books. But now to see it in a different format, I just think it's actually going to be awesome. I'm going to hype this up as much as I possibly can, and probably if it's amazing, I'll be happy. If it's horrible, I'll be happy. One or the other. But it looks like it's going to be pretty cool. I was actually speaking with my brother about it. We hope it's not a live action. We hope they do stay with a completely computerized movie. That's what we think it should be. I mean, the videos that they've had make their characters look as if you can see them once you walk out onto the street, if not better. So I think that would be awesome. And as you can see with the video, we're going to be covering a lot of different areas from the birth of Warcraft, what actually happened to get the whole story going on. And that's just what's going to be amazing about this. And I am completely dorking out, and I have been dorking out since about 10 o'clock this morning about this. So,
Alan, what's your thought?
Yeah. Well, Warcraft as a film, I'm hoping that it's really good. I mean, I haven't gotten into the lore as much as you guys. I mean, when I play World of Warcraft, it's more of like level grind. Oh, let me do this quest. Oh, I finished the quest. I bought him. Oh, I got him out. I'm riding a fucking bird or griffin. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, I saw the trailer, the teaser, and it looks phenomenal. This movie actually was done filming it, I believe, towards the end of like 2014, and it's taken it's taking quite a while to do because of all the apparently all the CGI and cinematics. They actually released a trailer during Comic-Con, and you figured, the first impressions for Warcraft, it would be a bigger hit, but obviously, if you hear anything out of Comic-Con this year, all they talked about was Deadpool and like X-Men. They were people who saw the footage. I haven't seen the footage for Warcraft were pretty underwhelmed. Apparently, from what they saw at Comic-Con was that it looked like they were watching a World of Warcraft cutscene, basically. I mean, granted, it's still a year and a half, away from the actual release of the film, but but looking at this teaser, it looks like they obviously fixed that. So I'm anticipating it to be good, and I'm hoping that this is kind of the birth, or like it's gonna open the floodgates for video game movies, because we haven't had a good video game movie in years, right? I mean, I think me and Steve watched Doom 10 years ago in theaters, and the only and we're like, oh, they're gonna do a first-person shooter part, and it was like, oh, okay, that was it
for 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's probably the next big thing in Hollywood, is that they're gonna try to use video games to try to adapt those. I mean, the best video game movie I would say is Mortal Kombat, but it's up. What do you guys think?
That was also in the midst of the '90s era campy action movies, which are all phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time,
subjective.
I mean, it was understandably campy and like really like stupid. You can't get away with a movie like the old Mortal Kombat movies now.
We like Starship Troopers for God's sakes.
Well, I mean, to bring up like bad video game movies, the director Yu Boll. All right, so let me just bring up a screen up here. So he's got a bunch of movies that are under his belt: Blood Rain, Postal, In the Name of the King, which is a Dungeon Siege movie, House of the Dead, Alone in the Dark, Far Cry. These are all like video game movies. And apparently, I was very briefly reading something about him and the whole Warcraft movie thing before. Apparently, Uwe Boll approached Blizzard and asked if he could do the movie, and they were like, "No, like get the hell out! Like you're gonna ruin the entire franchise. Like leave right now, please." Like they like turned him away like real harshly, and he like made a comment about it. Really interesting. The only other movies I've ever seen of his is In the Name of the King, and it was terrible. It was really terrible.
Steve, that's one of the things is that how comic book movies got from being a laughing stock to like actual being taken serious is when they actually put talent behind the camera and in front of the camera. I mean, you can't look at what Uwe Boll did. He just did a bunch of VOD movies. Obviously, if they're gonna make a universe like what they're gonna try to do with Warcraft, they're gonna want a good director. And Duncan Jones, I don't know if you guys have seen Moon. If you guys haven't seen Moon, you should watch Moon. Basically, he did a really good job on that. That's why they tapped him to do that, And actually, I think his father's David Bowie. Yeah, Duncan Jones' father is actually David Bowie. So basically, David Bowie's son is making Warcraft.
Wow. So I mean, I have something I want to bring up here, and it's the shot that I had brought up before, where they're standing in front of a cathedral or something. Let me show this real quick. There is essentially what looks to be a green screen effect happening in the background.
You think?
Well, I mean, definitely, because I mean, who's going to pay all the money in order to build a cathedral or go shoot on site in front of a cathedral?
Lucasfilms will. Lucasfilm. They built the Millennium Falcon for God's
before
sakes.
a Warcraft movie. So look at the family on the left, and look at the priest, or what looks to be Khadgar, maybe, I don't know.
Or Medeba.
On the right, but like it's very clear that they're green screened in, at least to me.
Guard 1 and Guard 2. Yeah, I know. Are you talking about that family? I'm assuming. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean,
I can't.
I mean, the characters like themselves look great. Like the costumes look phenomenal, but like it's very clear that the background is CG'd in the background behind them.
Oh yeah, of course.
I don't know. Just to me, like it didn't seem like the production effects were quite as top notch as I would have liked, and I think that's part of that is like we're used to seeing the Warcraft cutscenes, and they're all CG. Like all the characters are all CG too, so it blends uniformly. So I don't know. It's gonna be a little tough, at least for me, to really see real people moving around in front of CG screens, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with something like if they're fighting like an orc or a wolf or something. Basically, you're gonna have some inconsistencies in the way it looks, at least in my opinion. I don't know. What are you guys' feelings on that, at least?
I definitely agree with that one. You're gonna have either one extreme. I mean, if you're gonna go for the CGI, you gotta go straight CGI. And if you're gonna, you can't do half and half, in my personal opinion. I mean, let's go back in time and the Lord of the Rings movies. They worked because you had the orcs be man-made orcs. They weren't CGI'd. I mean, you had the CGI, you had the trolls and everything along those lines, but you had to understand that. But as you said, like this is going to be more of a movie where you're going to have a one-on-one interaction with an orc right in front of you. You can't have a person with then CGI all around them to make it look real.
I would argue against that, to be honest with you. Have you seen Planet of the Apes? Or War of the Planet of the Apes? No, the new ones that came out. The new ones that came out.
First one, not second one.
The first one. Well, the second one. Well, basically, the second one is essentially they were all people in like Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis did was it Gollum? In Lord of the Rings, and he did mocap. So mocap has been a huge thing that's been taking over, where basically, you put on this kind of suit, and essentially, they go out and do CGI over you. And from watching that movie, they did a really good job in terms of changing him into a monkey. and you don't really see. I mean, you don't really see him as a monkey. And actually, one of the characters, the guy who's playing Doroton, this Doroton, whatever his name is, his name is Tony Kebbell. I mean, he played. He was also in that movie too, and he was doing mocap as well. Granted, he also played Doctor Doom in Fantastic Four, which is a shit show. But sorry, a little random. But I think the best. I mean, obviously, the best kind of CGI is the CGI that you don't realize is there.
Yes.
That's what I would argue is that you do have. I mean, what you call it? Was it Andrew Jackson? No, is it Andrew Jackson? No, Peter Jackson. He's the one.
President Andrew Jackson.
he came back and did Lord of the Rings. If you were to do, because like a lot of the shots, when the wide shots, they were all CGI. But the thing is that he brought that gravitas when he actually had people in costumes, So I would say you need 50,
do you guys remember Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within?
Oh, that was a terrible movie, and it was all CGI.
But I mean, the fact that you ran the whole movie in CG is, I mean, I think that's phenomenal. Look at Toy Story. Look at all the Pixar films.
That's animated. That's animated, Steven. That's different, though. We're talking about anime and CGI. That's different.
All the same thing.
No, it's not, Steve.
It's all the same thing.
No, it's not. I would argue it against that. Live action. What do you think, Mafu?
No, and I agree. I mean, with that, I do completely put them in two different separate categories for the Toy Story to Pixar's compared to what we had with the Final Fantasy movie, or even with any of the other items that are going on, in the sense of Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, as you said, the longer shot scenes in Lord of the Rings. They are two different spectrums of maybe the same field, but in this case, we're comparing apples to oranges with Warcraft to Toys of the Rings. Yep, definitely. To Toy Story.
Yeah.
No. I think that CG is all right. So maybe there is a distinction, right? So you have CG, which is an additive. It's a post-production process that you're adding additional 3D elements of animation, right? Because you're taking normal footage and you're really just cutting in extra 3D stuff that's happening around the characters. Whereas, yes, if you have an animated film, it's completely just CG. There is no post-production in that sense because it's all completely animated.
Yeah,
I guess. But I mean, essentially, they're the same things, right? You could potentially have a CG. What's the word? Amplified or movie that's augmented. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. An augmented movie experience where you have live action and you have CG. And that quality that you have there should be, or could be, the same quality that you would see in a completely animated film. The difference, and you guys already touched on this, is that like it should be seamless, right? You should be able to go from that live action directly into the CG and not realize what's happening, just like in Lord of the Rings. I mean, there's little notes of the computer-generated graphics happening, like with Gollum and things like that, but for the most part, like you can't tell that it's happening. And in something like Warcraft, which I know is going to have a much lower budget, or more than likely have a much lower budget than most of your other like big action films now, I think those subtle differences are going to show up more consistently. I mean, even shows up in this trailer, at least to my eyes.
It's still 15 seconds, by the way.
It is still 15 seconds. Yeah, so we should be getting a full trailer on Friday. But what do you guys think the story is going to be? I mean, they kind of like tap and like give a little bit of a hint at it. But what do you guys think?
I think Matt would better answer this than me.
I'm actually going with sort of the area that has yet to be fully touched upon with any of the novels, and that's sort of just been sort of screenshotted over with any of the games. We're going to look at that initial portal opening. We're going to see the struggle between the stronger good orcs, if you will, the Doratans, the Hellscream, before he was possessed, and against the Goldans. And then we're going to see the reaction of the the human empire to that. I mean, that's where I'm seeing it's going to go. It's not going to be something we don't know about. It's not going to be a brand new story in the sense of, oh my gosh, we don't know how it's going to end. But I think that it's just going to put some extra plot summaries or fill up some of the plot holes that may have been put in throughout the past however many years, 15, 20 years.
I can tell you how it ends. It's gonna end with hopefully another sequel. That's what they're trying to do. I mean,
it's gonna end with World of Warcraft 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you remember how like we saw the trailer for Star Wars and you heard about the internet breaking us and stuff like that. I'm curious in terms of like after we see this trailer, whether people start re-upping for World of Warcraft. I mean, if you make such a kick-ass trailer that people go crazy, hey, I need to re-up my my character and start playing again. Yeah.
I mean, this is the figure that I just have off the top of my head. I haven't looked anything up recently, but I want to say that like during, I guess it was Wrath of the Lich King or something like that. I remember seeing 12 million unique subscribers, which is a lot. I mean, that's a lot of $15 a month subscriptions. Like, I mean, they were making a ton of money. I'm sure they still have like tons of subscribers now, but I'm sure it's been dwindling off as well because, I mean, the advent of like free-to-play gaming and all that, it's really taking away from them. That and the game is aging. I mean, they've recently had their expansion pack. It brought me back for a little bit, but it didn't hold my attention long enough to really warrant continue paying for it. I think they got 6 months out of me, if that. And I don't know. If they come up with something that's really, interesting at the same time that they launch the movie for the game, I might, go back and check it out. But I mean, I don't see it as a real reason to resubscribe. I mean, the most recent expansion, Warlords of Draenor, really touches on sort of where they're going with the movie, from what I can tell, and that first portal opening and kind of figuring out the storyline from when it all first started. But I think, like, my take on this, at least from what I've seen online about what's going on and the way that they're portraying both sides, I think it's more a story about heroes on both ends, and they don't want to portray the Horde and the Orcs as bad guys like they did in the first Warcraft game. Because in the first Warcraft game, it was just like, you're the Alliance, Orcs are attacking, kill them, they're bad people. They're very one-dimensional enemy, and because we've played all the games since, like, we understand that whoa, that's not how it goes, and we as people who really enjoy the lore want to see that with our enemies, and just in a modern movie we want to be able to see a three-dimensional character, someone who's got more than just evil intent. And that's what I'm hoping that we're going to see out of this movie, and what they're kind of hinting at. Because you're going to hopefully see, like, why the Horde has to invade Lordaeron, why Lordaeron's in trouble, and why they're defending, and who the heroes are on both sides. Although you're going to have a real problem because someone's going to want to scream at the movie theater for the Horde or for the Alliance, and somebody's going to do it in the movie theater when you go to watch it.
It'll be mostly adults that will be screaming for the Horde. I mean, it's just a bunch of little kids. They're not going to be old enough to do the midnight showing, which is what we're probably going to watch it at.
Yeah, I probably will go to the midnight showing of that. Matt, let's write it in our calendars because we're grown-ups now. And that's what we do.
Yeah, maybe we'll see on that one.
It's in June.
It's a nice out then. I don't like movies during the summer.
We'll watch it at 8 o'clock. Is that fair enough?
Oh, maybe. Sure. Okay.
So Alan did drop in another topic just really quick. Basically, Star Wars is getting a new property, and it's a board game. So Fantasy Flight Games, they make a whole bunch of different newer board games that we've been playing, like the XCOM board game, for example. But they make other Star Wars games like trading card games and other tabletop RPGs. And they're actually coming out with a strategy board game, very much in the veins of, Warcraft's sort of grand strategy, RTS type sort of game, except on the tabletop. And by the way, I do have a Warcraft strategy tabletop game, which we should probably try and play.
Yeah, about that.
So, I mean, Star Wars Rebellion is this new board game. You can check it out on Fantasy Flight's website and in the link down below. Although I think I just checked it and it doesn't seem to be working still. Um, I'll change the link after the show's over. But essentially, it's going to be a 30-planet game, which seems like a lot of planets to have on a board in front of you. And it's going to have starships and different hero characters like Boba Fett and Han Solo. And you're going to have up to 4 players facing off as the rebellion against the Empire. And it sort of takes place in the Episode 4 onward kind of storyline. So you can expect to see all the standard ships that you remember from the original trilogy and not anything from before that or anything really newer from the new Force Awakens sort of era. So interesting to note that, although I didn't get a whole lot of detail about that because it still hasn't been released yet, and they only just kind of announced it and talked about a little bit of playthroughs beforehand. Just wanted to bring that up because we almost never have board game news on this show, and that's something that we just had to throw in there. Along with the fact that I just got this, the Dungeons and Dragons Sword Coast Adventurers Guide. So I just started playing D&D a little bit more than a year ago, and these guys joined in along with me, and we've been playing Dungeons and Dragons on and off for the past year, basically once a month, and it's phenomenal. I mean, what do you guys experience, first of all? Let me just gauge your reactions to us finally playing Dungeons & Dragons, because that's something we probably should have been doing as kids, not as adults, right? And 2, what your reactions are to playing in 5th edition, the newest edition, before we even talk about the Adventurer's Guide.
Alan, take one.
I like Dungeons and Dragons. My girlfriend, not so much. Not so much. She thinks it's the dumbest game ever. But my experience, I mean, this is the first edition of Dungeons and Dragons I've ever played. I've never played the other editions, so I can't really draw back on any of them. But to me, it feels like it's really easy to jump into. I thought I would have a lot of problems with acting. I mean, like, I didn't have the gifts that the Armentis had, basically. Where they're able to, well, I can't act, I can't speak publicly. I'm a bumbling idiot usually, but yeah, the game is really easy to jump into, and it's actually, and I mean, it ultimately became something that we all share, and it's a great way for us to all hang out. I mean, one thing we do is play board games, but also we have once a month we play Dungeons and Dragons, where we just basically we get coffee, we get donuts, we get beer, we have barbecues or whatever, and we just relax and just play this game. What are your thoughts, Matt?
It's turned into a great social time, and it's funny because most people that would hear Dungeons and Dragons don't think social, but it really is. It keeps us together, and actually we get a bunch of people to play. I mean, it's not just the 3 of us. We have 2 other main people. My girlfriend plays, and then we also have randoms that come in every once in a while. My brother will jump in when he can, and it's just something fun. I mean, you have to think, so it's not just like a mindless board game or a mindless video game. You could pretty much do whatever you want. And as Alan said, I've never played any previous edition. I tried in, I think, elementary school. My friend got it. We built characters, and that's as far as we ever got. But it is really something that surprised me, caught me off guard on how much I'd actually enjoy it, and it's something I actually look forward to. I mean, we got another session in, 2 weeks, and I'm counting down the days.
We have one on Friday.
Yes,
ready.
We are playing 2 games, yes.
We do have Rage of the Demons on Friday, or Out of the Abyss.
My Sword Coast Adventures just shipped from Amazon, so I'm waiting for that on Friday. Sorry.
Well, if anyone could guess, too, I am wearing a Dungeons and Dragons shirt, by the way. So basically, the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, this guy here, is essentially an add-on to what we already have in terms of the 5th edition core rulebook. So last year, in August, they actually launched, or Wizards of the Coast, who also did the Pokemon and Pokemon trading card game, as well as the Magic the Gathering trading card game. So, I mean, they're a very popular name.
Mm-hmm.
Dungeons and Dragons released their player's handbook last year in August, and that's really the core sort of way you work your characters into a universe that you decide to create. So what this is sort of an expansion pack, like another video game sort of lingo, and basically it just adds more content for you. So your player's handbook gives you sort of the core rules for, let's say, a warrior, and your warrior can do, X to begin with, and this will basically allow your character to select, instead of X, now you can do Y. Just another direction that you could take your characters. And in addition, this thing really supports the sort of lore that they're developing along the Sword Coast in Faerun, in the world that is Dungeons & Dragons. Because, there are multiple different other worlds that you can just create. If you're a dungeon master, you can create your own content, write your own stories. You don't have to use the books that they provide, which is really cool and the reason why a lot of people play D&D. We happen to play out of modules a lot because it's just simpler, it saves us time. And it's a lot of fun anyway, so it doesn't really matter, if someone's creating something or not. But this book adds new class options for some of the classes. One thing I noticed was that the Ranger doesn't have a new class option.
Good.
You pick your class, and it gave you like a little blurb about like doing something cool as a Ranger, but doesn't really give you any extra options. For the fighter, for example, you can choose Eldritch Knight. As your martial archetype, you could choose Battle Master, I believe, as well as Champion. And those were all the classic ones from the book from last year, but they added a new one, which is Purple Dragon Knight. And they kind of explain the background and explain kind of what it does. It's more of like a battle-crying kind of warrior type. But there's a number of other class options for other classes as well. In addition, they added some new races. They fleshed out the races that already exist by giving more details of the background. And talking about backgrounds, they added a whole ton of new backgrounds. So if instead of being a soldier, you want to be a veteran mercenary, that's an option now. You could be a swashbuckler. As well as a few other things that are out there, but definitely worth a shot at taking a look. What do you guys think of my description? You have any questions that you want to throw at me? Maybe.
Hold on. Failed. Never mind. It failed. So whatever I'm gonna ask is not gonna work. It was a 7. Sorry. So basically, it's just classes and races. Is there anything else in terms of gameplay-wise other than that? Is it just like, is there any additional adventuring stuff it's a adventuring guide, so maybe is there other adventuring aspects that are part of it that they didn't touch upon, or they clarified from the player's handbook?
So there's no like rules clarifications from the previous book. It's really just rules additions. So like they added new cantrips for the wizard, sorcerer, and warlock. Basically just new stuff, and the same thing goes with the class options. Basically, it's just new rules for different stuff that you can have. Not really anything nor any changes from the original stuff. What they do kind of give you a little more information about is like gods and information about locations and background. So if you wanted to flesh out your story for your character a little more using options from inside Faerun, you can. So like if you're a cleric, for example, and you're like, I don't know which god from the Faerunian pantheon to select. Now you have a little bit more information and why it kind of makes sense. They also kind of talk about major cities and like what their populations are like. They talk a little bit about languages too, and they flesh languages out for humans quite a bit. Like there's a ton of different like subdialects for common apparently. Who knew? That's if you want to get super crazy and have like a human campaign.
That's gonna be horrible one day.
But I don't think that's something that most DMs will probably implement.
The movie Babel, have you seen it? No, don't.
Oh, sucks to be Danny, because I'm not gonna.
Are you guys excited to see new content out of D&D for the players? We've already seen a ton of modules for stories for DMs to run campaigns, but this is new for the players, which is phenomenal.
Yeah. Sorry, was there any new classes? I wasn't paying attention.
No, so no new classes.
I have low perception.
There are a bunch of new subclasses.
Oh, meh.
Really just stuff that you get at level 3.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so moving on. We have something else in gaming, which is the Batman Arkham Knight fiasco. So back in June of this year, Arkham Knight, Batman Arkham Knight was released. To much fanfare, because everyone loves Batman games. Everyone loves Batman, but especially the Batman Arkham series has been doing really well over the past, I don't know, 6 years or so that they've been coming out with games for it. And essentially, they launched all 3 games for both Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and for PC or Windows all at the same time. But the Windows users were having a ton of trouble. Basically, all sorts of crashes and different bugs that existed in the game basically made the game unplayable. So they've been continuing to try and release patches and fix the game since. But just this week, they announced that they'll be offering refunds to people who bought the game through the end of the year. And I just wanted to get your guys' opinion on the idea of releasing a game that is totally broken, that you really waste almost 6 months of your time trying to fix after you sold it. What do you guys think, Alan?
I guess, what you call it? Who's the makers of this again? Sorry, for Arkham Asylum. Is it EA?
I don't believe it's an EA game, to be honest. I'm not sure offhand.
Well, whoever's making this damn thing, they're rolling pretty bad, I guess. I guess they're rolling really low. But it sucks. I mean, I love it sucks for PC. I mean, this goes with the whole stigma that PC gamers get screwed in terms of any of those usually those AAA games, kind of like. Because they're the ones that usually get the back end of everything. Like, when Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, PC gamers had to wait nearly like 6 months or almost 6 months or 8 months to get the game. When people like me, Xbox users who finished the game in a week, got the chance to play through the game and enjoy it. And it sucks, that PC gamers are taking the back end of the stick. I mean, I've always been more of a console gamer. I mean, I'm transitioning to PC gaming, hopefully, Janice. But yeah, I mean, this totally sucks. I mean, at least they're offering refunds to kind of to compensate for the people's time. But this is a big shit show. It's a huge shit show for the company. What do you think, Matt?
I mean, the refunds are great, but when it comes down to it's pretty much like you see anywhere else. People want to get everything out there just to make the money, no matter the issues. I mean, we see that in any industry, whether it's video games, whether it's cars, or whether it's Apple with their new iOS systems. I mean, they push things out just quickly, and then they deal with the issues after the fact, reactively rather than proactively. And we're seeing that. And as you said, it's leading to the point of the PC gamers being a little more on the not really thought about side. It's all about the consoles. It's all about who has PS4 or Xbox One, whatever our next generation is going to be for that. That's where their main focus is. And I mean, it's not putting 100% into what you're actually doing, so it then just screws you over in the end. Yes, the refunds are good, but that's still going to cause issues. As the article said, it's not going to do anything with DLCs, so that's wasted money for a lot of people, because nowadays there's so much with DLCs. I mean, a lot of it, the free ones are great, but the ones that you pay an extra $2, $3, $5, $10 for are amazing 9 times out of 10. So what are you going to do with that? You just lost $15, $20 in DLCs that you can never use, and they're not going to refund you back for it.
I just want to expand on a point that Alan made, and that's about how PC gamers get the cruddy end of the stick all the time when we get a multi-platform release for a AAA title. And something I've been noticing a lot is that games tend to be ports, at least PC games, tend to be ports of the Xbox or PlayStation equivalents. And what I mean by that is it's like the game was very clearly designed for someone that's using a controller. And this was evident to me when I was playing Skyrim. I mean, this was years back at this point, because I mean, all the options, like they use radial dials, Like, it's a thumbstick option where like it's up, down, left, right, or the corners. Like, that's not something that you need to do with a mouse. Like, you could have a menu like with a mouse and just click on stuff.
Buy a controller.
I mean, a lot of people now are using controllers on their PCs too. I mean, that's something that's always existed, that's been readily available. But it still bothers me because having that freedom of having a mouse and keyboard allows you to do so much more with a game. So even if it is just a copy of the same game from Xbox or PlayStation, being able to sort of take creative license with how you interact with the game should be something that you can do pretty easily, and something that you should do if you have any creative license at all. I mean, a lot of times companies will have, for example, you have one game that's on Xbox and they want to launch it on PC. They'll hire another company to actually make the PC version at the same time. And they have some creative license to make sure that things work and that it runs smoothly. But instead they just choose to just use the same interface options, which is just, I mean, that's boring.
Lazy.
And lazy. I mean, the PC experience has slowly become melded with the console experience, which is in some ways good, because ultimately I would love to play a PC shooter like Halo, or that's an Xbox shooter, but play that against someone that's on a PC, or me on a PC play against.
Agreed.
Even like Battlefront, that's coming up next week. I'm sorry, not next week, but the following week. Star Wars Battlefront is going to be a multi-platform launch, and I want to play with people who have a PlayStation or something. But
you're never gonna because they're gonna keep it separated. That's just how it is. Servers and everything. That's just how it is. I mean, in a perfect world, you'd be able to do all that stuff. Like I remember back when the PS2 came out, when they first had like PS2 could go online. They had Final Fantasy 11, right? But then you couldn't play with the people. The people on PS2 wouldn't be able to play with the people on PCs, right? And that sucks. But that's ultimately how it is, though. It's until like they're never gonna. I mean, all these companies are never gonna play nice. It's just like why people are like, oh, why doesn't Marvel get X-Men and all these characters back? Because they don't need to. They make money on their own. Why would they need to get together? And it's not like they're gonna make more money. They're just gonna end up splitting the profits two-way. So why would they ever do that?
I would not be surprised if PC gaming starts to dwindle. I mean, they've always talked about this with every new generation of systems that comes out, but especially since how much money there is behind consoles right now, like PC gaming just kind of dying down a little, especially since a lot of game formats too are really well adapted for the console. The only thing that really hasn't really adapted really well is RTS games, but you don't really have a lot of RTS games and real-time strategy games like StarCraft, for example, that exist on console, one, and two, that just exist at all. I mean, I really can't think of too many strategy games that come out that are kind of similar in style, even on the PC. So, like, I mean, the development houses are few and far between that work on PC exclusive stuff. Unlike Xbox, because everyone wants to make money, right? So you're going to make it for the systems that everyone can get access to, and that tends to be the consoles.
So you're telling me not to buy a new computer and buy a PS4 and Xbox One? Is that what you're telling me?
PS5 and Xbox 18,000, whatever it's going to be next time. Right?
Well, it's supposed to be Xbox.
Do you guys remember the PlayStation 9 commercials?
I was thinking
when PlayStation 2 came out.
It looked awesome. The futuristic looking one. I remember. Yeah.
Everyone look up on YouTube when you get a chance.
I've seen it.
I'll post a link in the video description after.
You mean me will do it?
Oh no, you'll do the annotations. I'll make the change to the
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. All right, moving right along. Another article that I found that only I am probably going to talk about because no one else probably thinks this is cool at all is a story about ants that I found on Engadget, and it is essentially talking about how we have super materials of the future, like nanotubes and stuff like that. Well, that's kind of similar to what we have with fire ants already. So this scientist at Georgia Institute of Technology actually basically took a ball of ants and tried to squash it. And you can watch the video here on the page that I've linked into the video description. Basically, he's saying that our smart materials, or like our nano materials, stuff like micro robotics and things like that, should mimic something like ants. Because if you try and squash a ball of ants, they try to kind of just move out of the way, reform around it. None of them die, none of them break, and they all survive. And after you move away, it kind of reforms the same shape. If you throw a ball of ants into water, they form a raft, and they all survive. It's just interesting to me because if you could write a program, write an application or something that ran Silly Putty, for example. This is exactly what you would want Silly Putty. Yes, a putty from Power Rangers.
Power Rangers.
I just thought this was cool. He talks about it in the video, like if you smashed a piece of glass with a softball or threw a brick through it, all the pieces would end up on the floor. But if you had a smart material that knew that it needed to reform the glass, you'd throw the brick through, the glass shards would fall away and then reform back into the piece of glass again, and it's as if it never broke. And that's kind of what ants do. Like if ants had formed a wall and you threw something through it, they'd all form the wall again after you threw the brick through. Interesting. Technology imitates biology is just kind of the adage that has been said sometimes. You look at birds' wings, for example, and then you end up with airplanes. I don't know, just something I wanted to mention. What are you guys' thoughts about ants as a idea for super materials of the future?
Someone has obviously watched Ant-Man. I mean, it's a cool concept like anything else, but it's like you said, it's still it's nice if you can get if you get super material to do this kind of stuff. However, we're gonna find the super material, right? Are you really gonna? You're not gonna really use ants to as the super material, right?
But you could.
You could. I don't know.
That's the way of the future. You're gonna wear an armor of ants, ant armor, and you're gonna get shot, and they're gonna stop the bullet from hitting you.
Will they rub my nipples? That's all I need.
Oh.
Will they rub my nipples? If they don't, then no go.
Matt, you have any comments?
As long as they don't bite me.
Yeah, it's anything. As we're looking into the smaller creatures, to be honest, insects of any type, we find that they are technically the strongest out of anything. I mean, we see spider web or spider silk, which is, in retrospect, stronger than anything. Yes, in our terms, we could knock down a spider web with a flick of our finger and it falls apart. But when you look at it at a grander scale or in a minuscule scale, what it actually holds to compare to how thin it is what we need for the future. So if there's a way for us to somehow adapt to that, that's amazing. Same thing with the ants. And ants have always been looked to. I mean, ants are stronger than you would think. They could lift, I think it's like 50 times their own body mass and walk around with it. I mean, who could do that? What human can actually do that? And this is going into Ant-Man. But going into Kurt Vonnegut, there was a story, Cat's Cradle, and the whole story was apocalyptic world because there was a hyper water element created that pretty much knocked off water and froze it, and if you pretty much even touched any of it, you just dry up because it's all water. And ants were surviving out of all the other creatures in the world because they were able to adapt in this sense. They would create a ball around this new water source and find a way to actually melt it so that they can actually survive. So for us to move forward as humans, if we're going to look at it this way, we do have to look to the things that we can squish with our foot as we walk throughout the day.
And I don't know if it's 50 times their weight.
Yeah,
I want to say it's like 10.
I know. Yeah.
I don't know, but I don't think it's quite 50. Anyways, I mean, it's like I said, technology sometimes imitates biology, and this is just one of those things I wanted to bring up. And another science topic that we could just touch on very briefly is something I'll show you here that I found on IGN, oddly enough, not something on a science page. But essentially, NASA released some footage of the sun in Ultra HD. The video that they take is 8 times the standard high-definition 1080p. And they actually posted this to YouTube, and the video is available here. I think it's like 40 minutes long or something like that. And it is phenomenally mesmerizing, and they play some weird, funky music that you would kind of expect scientists at NASA to kind of come up with. But absolutely phenomenal images. If you can stream it, because it's really, 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 really bandwidth intensive, stream it at the highest setting and look at it, you'd absolutely amazed. Definitely worth a look. It's one of the most beautiful things I could probably think of, and I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention, and check that in the link down below, please. Awesome stuff. The last thing that I wanted to touch on was Twitter just recently changed, and they've been testing this, their like button from stars to hearts. Now, a few episodes ago, Alan and I talked about emojis and how awful, awful, awful I think emojis are in the first place.
You mean the movie that's coming out soon? You know they're having a Pez movie as well, by the way.
Well, I like Pez.
But they're making a movie out of it.
I kind of wish I kept some of my Pez dispensers, by the way, because some of them are actually kind of worth money. Some like the old ones.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
But going from stars to hearts, there's some people who are like up in arms about it. What do you guys think about making such a subtle switch, especially after all these years of Twitter having the stars there for the like button? It'd be like changing the thumbs up button on Facebook. Matt, what's your take? You're the marketing guy, the advertisement guy.
Yeah, and as horrible as this sounds, I actually don't use Twitter. I have an account, but I've done like 5 things in it in 15 years. To be honest, it's a button. And in my personal opinion, again, I don't use it that often, so to me, it's a button. I mean, are we going to go to horseshoes, clovers, and blue moons after this? We'll see. But to me, it's a button. If it does the same exact thing, what's the big deal?
I cannot agree anymore. I mean, I'm the same way too. The only reason why I even have a Twitter is for tracking like news stuff, like sports, celebrities. That's really what I use Twitter for. So to me, if it changes to anything like that, it probably won't impact my life. But I could see why it might impact someone that actually does use it on a normal basis, because Twitter is actually, whether we like it or not, it's one of the biggest social network things in the world. I thought it was stupid initially, because you're like, oh, you basically just post your status every other time. I still don't understand it, to be honest with you. I don't still understand retweet and all that stuff. I guess I'm getting too old for this shit. Sorry, but I don't know. What do you think, Steve?
It kind of makes sense to go from a star to a heart. I mean, if you think of it in terms of like, oh, what the hell button am I clicking? When you go into a new interface in any new application or something, you're always looking for something that looks familiar, right? So like, what the hell does a star mean? Like, it doesn't have any context if you don't understand. Hey, you could favorite something, on Twitter. No, I have a Twitter at the Steve Chin, by the way, if you care to follow. But I don't think anyone really is on Twitter as much as they are on Facebook, at least amongst all of our friends, because we kind of grew up in that sort of generation where Facebook was sort of the basis for everything, and then like small little things like
MySpace,
Instagram,
right? MySpace is actually where we grew up on, and Zanga, sir.
Zanga.
So, that evolved into Facebook because those things kind of just died off, right? But the button change on Twitter.
MySpace hasn't died.
I agree with you guys. Insignificant, really, to me. And I use it for pretty much the same thing that you do, Alan. It's really just keeping track of, news and celebrities and stuff like that. Because a lot of new trending news is kind of interesting, because you can kind of get it before major news outlets sometimes, although it might not necessarily be correct. The other thing that I have a Twitter for, and this is only because I've seen it done online a lot, is that it seems like customer service departments at major companies have Twitter accounts, and like you could totally tweet them, and it's like almost the same thing as contacting customer service, contact phone number.
Oh, terrible. Oh, God, I hate emailing people when they ask you, they don't give you like what you call it. I tried to contact Loot Crate, and they didn't give me a phone number, and they gave me like an email. I'm like, can I just call you? I didn't get my package. I just want to call you.
No, not anymore.
I know. I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, I see why. I mean, landlines are being cut left and right. I mean, I still have a landline. You know, thank God I still had a landline during what you call it during was it not Katrina? I'm sorry,
Sandy.
Sandy. When that was the only thing I had to contact the outside world. Basically, was a landline phone. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm one to say that landline phones are still useful, but at the same time, I don't know. I feel like emailing is something I'd much rather do than necessarily calling, just because everyone can do it on their own time and then it's done. Um, Although there is something about the immediacy of making a phone call, right? I mean, if if you want to get an ambulance or a police car to your home, you're certainly not going to send an email or a text message.
I'm dying.
Help!
I'm dying. I'm dying.
Help me!
But I really wonder what like those customer service departments that have like Twitter accounts. Like I really wonder like how many people they have looking at the screen waiting for a tweet, because there's like hundreds of people who are complaining about your company. Like, well, let's say it's an airline like Southwest or something. Like someone's tweeting at Southwest like you suck, like you're terrible, I hate your company. And like someone in customer service has to look at that because they need to look at the next one that says, hey, I need help changing my tickets over because I missed the flight or something. Like it's gonna be interesting to actually like work in the social media department of one of those companies in customer service.
I'm sure it isn't. It isn't interesting. I'm sure they hate themselves every day. It's customer service basically. I'm sure they hate themselves.
Well, Matt, you do HR. Does your HR department use a lot of social media like Twitter or anything like that to try recruiting and stuff like that?
Yeah, actually, it's huge nowadays. Anywhere between Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Actually, a lot of companies have YouTube channels specific to their companies. It's a growing population. It is hitting the generations that we're trying to reach nowadays. I mean, if you look at Gen X and millennials, we are the social network area. We are the Twitters, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Snapchats, all that stuff.
Could you imagine getting a job offer via Snapchat?
You have 10 seconds, yes or no. But it's sad to the fact that I see it as we're losing the touch base of human interaction. I've seen people that are hired on that can't hold conversations. I see people that can't, not even just like one-on-one in person, but over a telephone. And it's because of the social media aspects. It's because of the email aspects. So you don't have that actual interpersonal communications.
Well, is it surprising to you because your contact with them through email or through social media is like very what's the word? Very well. I don't know. That very language articulate. That's the word. I was so not articulate right there. but do you find that people on social media or an email are much more articulate there than they are like on the phone and stuff? Like
no.
Or is it like it just directly translates? Like the people who are terrible on social media or email are just as terrible on the phone.
To be honest, it is just as terrible on the phone as they would be in any of those medias, because we're also that generation of why should I spell out you when I could put the letter U? Why should I spell out the word okay when I could just put K, not even okay or something along those lines? And you see that in conversation, and you also see that within any of the media streams, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, or emails. You have no idea how many times you get an email and it says thank you, the letter, or TNKS for your meeting with me, and it's just like, are you serious right now?
Okay.
So in that sense, yes, it's awesome. It's a double-edged sword on this one. In my opinion, and we've talked about this at work a couple times. We are growing so much. We could talk to somebody whenever we want that's in China, that's in Australia, that is in New Zealand, yet we are closing ourselves in at the same time. So with our expansions to grow and see more, we're locking ourselves into rooms. We're locking ourselves into our houses. I mean, why travel to Rome when you can look up everything on the internet or have a pen pal? I mean, back when pen pal was actually something, now pen pals are sending an email rather than waiting for an actual physical letter. And with our growth, we are also diminishing in a sense.
Yeah, why would we not be in the same room talking about this as opposed to going on Google Hangout and talking about this, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, wait. As we've discussed, Steve, what is something that you always say that you miss about like the 90s when we were growing up? You say you miss the old school 007 when four of us are sitting on a couch together interacting.
You don't want
do
that right now.
anymore.
I farted. Sorry.
But you know what it was? It was because it was a scarcity thing too. Not necessarily everyone had it, and it was something that we could all do. It was a social event, just like we have Dungeons and Dragons now.
Exactly.
It's just something that we can do together. And yeah, I totally agree with you, Matt. I mean, we're totally locking ourselves in it, and Alan says it, very clearly. All three of us are in separate rooms in separate houses, yet we are no more than like a mile or two away. Like you two are,
you don't want to
around
be near
the
me
block
right now.
from each other.
You don't want to be near me right now, by the way.
Probably not even 2 miles away. And yet we're all doing this thing together online, which is still phenomenal because I'd much rather be doing this than playing a video game by myself. But at the same time, yeah, there's something to be said about sitting next to you two and playing GoldenEye or something stupid like Perfect Dark back in the old days.
I don't think I was able to beat the first level of that.
That game was surprisingly difficult.
It was dark.
Didn't they make the second one really difficult too? The one on Xbox
Because it was dark.
One? It was one of your initial games on Xbox. No, Xbox 360. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I remember there being a
Perfect Dark
sequel. I don't
someday.
remember what it was called though.
It wasn't very good.
Yeah,
I think we both tried. We tried to play it. Oh, we also tried to play Dynasty Wars on Xbox 360 as well. I think.
All right, guys. I want to thank you guys for joining me on the show, and I want to thank all the viewers that we had during the show and that are watching now, and thank everyone who's going to watch this when it goes to YouTube in a few minutes when we're done broadcasting here. Leave some comments below, yell at us, and tell us how badly we've been broadcasting and how terrible our production quality is. But do join the conversation. Hopefully you guys who are watching at home will join us for the show and actually talk, just like Matt has here. Matt, thanks for joining us on the show, sort of last minute.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
My co-host, Alan, of course, thank you for joining me on the show as well.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to meet you. Of course, this is Jersey Hobby Hour. We broadcast every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can check us out, and we talk about all of our weird, stupid hobbies that include everything from tech and entertainment and D&D, as you can see. Please join us next week. Leave some comments. Yell at us. Thank you, and goodbye.